Hi, this is the Voices of the Underheard podcast, a project by Life After Incarceration, Transition, and Reentry, based in Ypsilanti, Michigan. Here we provide a platform to those impacted by the justice system to tell their stories. If you have a story to tell or want to learn more about us, look us up on social media under Voices of the Underheard or at lifeafterincarceration.com. We hope you enjoy listening.
We've been through tough times but can stand up to right. Underheard but our words can be freed and rise.
You guys ready? Smooth. All right. This is Voices of the Underheard. My name is Alex. I'm an occupational therapist that works in justice-based occupational therapy. I'm here with our friend Leroy.
Leroy Harris.
Leroy was a guest on our podcast previously. This is going to be our second interview with him today. And then we got, of course, Mr. Scott Tompkins on the line. How's it going, Scott?
How's everybody doing?
What's up, Scotty?
How's Leroy? Good to see you back, brother. Good to see you back. Let's see if we can keep up with you.
It's nice to be back.
All right. So I just want to start it off with, first of all, thanks for joining us again.
Yeah.
To chat. What have you been up to since last time that we spoke with you on this podcast?
Man, what has been almost a year now?
Mm-hmm.
It's been about a year. A lot of things have happened for me. A lot of doors have been opening for me. First, before I talk about that, I just want to say if some people that I never gave acknowledgement to the last time, I just want to acknowledge those people right now. Michigan Works. Not Michigan Works, Work Skills, I mean. Work Skills with Desi Johnson and Angela Johnson. Those are the people that actually got my first job when I was working down at Work Skills. They actually helped me form my LLC, what I'm about to talk about, what I've been doing. Desi Johnson took me in the office and we sat there for 2 hours and she helped me register my LLC. I got the EIN number and everything done that day. It took me a year to get my company up and running, but right now, the DM-19 is a functioning LLC, and that's what I'm doing right now. I actually working with the DRC as a contractor to build the Washtenaw County Youth Institute.
And what's the DRC?
The DRC is the Washtenaw County Dispute Resolution Center. They're the center where all the mediations go through, restorative justice go through. For example, if a young person goes to the county jail for a crime and nobody wants to prosecute or press charges, the judge will actually send the young man to us for mediation or for a circle to do with it. We also do mediations for the judges. We do mediations for Fortune 500 companies, do mediation for like Ford, GM, whoever need mediations in Washtenaw County. That's what DRC actually does. So what we're doing, we're contracted with the DRC to actually build the Washtenaw County Youth Institute, which is the first of its kind in Washtenaw County. Yes. Our first cohort starts actually tomorrow. So we'll be teaching 14, 15, 16, and 17-year-olds life skills, which mediation skills, critical thinking skills, ethical reasoning skills, dispute resolution skills, and conflict resolution skills. So those are the skills that we term as life skills we'll be actually teaching, giving it to children. And it's important to me because as a child, as a teenager, I didn't have critical thinking skills. You know, growing up, I didn't know how to critically think. I didn't know how to weigh my thoughts or weigh my actions to determine which is the best way to go or the worst way to go. I didn't have that. So to me, it means a lot to me to be able to give this to 14, 15, 16-year-olds, those skills that they can actually use in the neighborhoods they're in to determine which is the best way to think which is the best way to act, which is the best way to go. And that's what I'm doing right now.
Awesome. Because I know you're working with Washtenaw County at the actual, like the Dispute Resolution Center.
Yes.
And then I heard you're getting your own office space, right?
Yes, that's on hold right now. We tried to get it. To be honest with you, they went up on some prices for us, and so we cool. We'll work it out. We get that later. You know, I've been dealing with since I've been home. So many doors have been shut in my face since I've been home, but then so many doors have been open as well. So I know how this game actually goes. A door shuts, 5 opens for me. So I'm okay with it. You know, I'm okay with it. Right now, we're working out of the Washtenaw County Sheriff's Department with the DRC. So for right now, we're cool with that.
Awesome. Is this something like you saw yourself getting into? Like, did it just kind of happen?
No, actually, I had a dream when I was in prison. I had a dream that I was going to put chains on the outside the doors of all prisons and jails. So in my mind, me giving these skills to these younger people helps me to stop them from going to prisons and jails. When I did my research, they say like 60 to 80% of all the young children that go to detention centers, they end up going to prison and jails. So my thing was, well, how can we somehow interrupt these young children that's going to detention centers going to prison and jails? You got to give them skills, real skills. Not just house them and feed them, but take these children and give them real skills, real life skills that they can use in the neighborhoods. And that way we can actually shut down or close the doors to prison and jails on the outside.
How are you guys going about teaching those skills? What kind of process are you using in the Resolution Center?
We're doing 8-week programs. So if you can imagine, tomorrow will be like our first week. We're going to take them through teaching and training from 11 to 3. And what we do is we ask, like, let's say this first class is going to be like an introduction. So the first class, we may ask, what are some of your strengths? What are some of your challenges? And so it's kind of like getting into who they are as an individual. You know, who you are. Who do you think you are? What do you want to be when you get older? Who are your greatest peers in your life? You know, these are questions that most kids don't even ask themselves. So we're asking these children the questions that we know we should have been asked as children to get them on a level of understanding who they are as an individual first.
Do the participants just come to you to ask to be in the program, or are they referred by
we actually go seek them out.
Okay.
We go seek them out. We have like people like that have offered us children. They have like Supreme Felons offered us children that they have that they're mentoring, mentor to youth. Daryl Johnson has children that he offers to mentor. Mr. Weatherspoon, he has children that he offers to us to mentor. So we get them from about 3 or 4 different sources. We get children.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's a cool program. Because I think, like, you went through this, and now that you're on the other side of it,
indeed,
how does it feel to come at it from that perspective?
It's I'm gonna say I feel great to have the spirit that I have. You know, after being gone for so long, most people that come home don't have the right mind or the right spirit, because sometimes prison can destroy you, man. Prison was not a place to help you become a better person. When you're in prison, you have to become a better person yourself. So you have to work on yourself while you're there. And I feel great to be able to come out here and have that type of spirit. Like, one of the things that helped me actually keep focused when I come home was understanding that nobody owed me anything. And I didn't owe anybody anything. I owe myself everything. And that's what kept me focused on building my own situation or my own company was because I knew that nobody owed me anything. So if I would have came home thinking that everybody owed me, I'd have been too upset to do anything. I'd have been mad at everybody, attitude towards everybody, because everybody owed me something. So that was the first lesson I learned, was that nobody owes me anything. I owe myself everything, and I don't owe anybody anything. And I think that lesson right there was one of the most powerful lessons that I had to learn when I come home.
Yeah, which actually is touching on, I think, like the theme that we talked about for today.
Yeah.
Of like kind of like lessons that you can teach other people. Before we get into that, do you got any more updates?
Also, I work for also GSHA. GSHA is a quality control machine. I call it a machine. Where you got, I call him my auntie and my uncle, Greg Harden. May God bless his soul. His wife, Shalia Harden. I call him auntie and uncle. They were the first people that actually trained me in quality control when I first come home. So that was the first training program that I went through.
What is quality control?
Quality control is like, they teach you, like in manufacturing, like in plants and most manufacturing jobs, you have a section called quality control. Mm-hmm. What quality control does is they actually make sure that whatever the plant is producing, that it's of quality. Because like when I took the training always taught you that the customer is the boss. So when you're in quality control, you want to make sure that everything that's being produced is of quality, because if the customer gets it and it's not of quality, then that's going to hamper your business. Mm-hmm. So you have to always look at the customer as being the boss itself in order to produce a certain quality. So they trained me in that, and the soft skills I received from that was like astronomical, that I was able to use in my everyday life. Like, this is what I just told you. Mm-hmm. Like, for instance, you would be the boss to me. And what I mean by that is that you're the customer in my life. So in my life, when I meet you and I greet you and I interact with you, I got to give you the best version of me. Because I know if I give you the worst version of me, then that's going to hamper my quality towards you. And you might be like, hands off, I don't want to deal with Leroy no more, because I'm not getting that type of quality of person from him. So that's the way that I translated most of the stuff I got trained through quality control. I applied it to myself.
And so you're working with them now?
Yeah, I'm working with them now. Actually, what I do is I'm like the Washington County's, I can say, job coordinator for them. Huh. Like what I do is like, see if you got guys or anybody that wants a job, I would sign them up with, I would have them sign the paperwork, sign them up with Michigan Works, take them down to Michigan Works, take the TABE test. Once they go through the 8-week training, then we'll find them manufacturing jobs that fit the quality control training they have. And that's what we do.
Is this something you're going to use in your the program you're going to have there with the Resolution Center kids? Or are you going to use the control?
No.
No. Okay.
That's totally separate.
Okay.
All right.
Cool.
So I think we can transition kind of into the main topic for today. So me and Leroy kind of discussed this before we got started. Do you want to explain kind of like the theme that we chose for this podcast?
Well, I think that what's important is that people coming from where I come from sometimes have a tendency to allow the pressures of being returning citizens affect them adversely. So when you come home, it's a lot of pressure on you. Like when I come home, I remember when I went to DHHS and I had to fill out all the paperwork for my Medicaid, for the food stamps. And you imagine my first day out, I don't have none of this stuff. So I don't know where my first meal coming from. I don't know where my clothes are coming from. I don't know where any of these things are coming from. So when I went there and I filled out all the paperwork, and I was expecting this was going to happen that day. Like they were going to say, okay, you filled out paperwork, boom, boom. You got all your stuff, you go somewhere and get it, but they was like, no, you got to wait. It's a process. This actually has to be agreed or approved before you get these things. So I brought that up there to get you to understand that sometimes you have to understand processes, man. Mm-hmm. And that's what helped me to understand. I had to understand processes. That everything in life has a step-by-step process. If I'm impatient and I can't, or I don't understand the process, I'm going to break. I'm going to be mad at everybody. I may find myself back in prison. I may find myself back in jail doing some stupid stuff because I couldn't be patient enough to understand the process with what was happening with me. And I think that's one of the most important things, life lesson that I want to share with everybody, that you have to understand the processes in everything that you do, man. Even with filling out an application, getting a job, there's a process. Do you know how many jobs actually denied me because of my background? How many housing people denied me because of my background? Now, I could have been that person, say, okay, I'm impatient to the process, and I could have went out there and got the bag and did some stupid stuff, and now I'm back to where I'm at. But in my mind, I always kept in my mind, like, hold on, wait, slow down. There's a process. Doors are shutting now, but doors are going to open up. And then another thing that's important is understanding that you have certain people around you that you can call on to help you. And if you're arrogant and you don't want to ask people for help, that's going to be a problem. And that's another skill.
Yeah.
Asking for help is actually a skill. And when you understand that asking for help is actually a skill, don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't think that everybody's going to help you either, because everybody's not going to help you.
Yeah. And I think, like, you do a really good job of articulating this stuff. Because, like, when we were talking about doing this podcast, like, my thought was like, wow, okay. When I work with people that are justice impacted, what you're talking about is having to almost like head on deal with these really complicated emotions that I think a lot of people in the general population just don't know how to deal with. Right. Where, like, you talk about like asking for help, like sometimes people just don't do that. They just like, they're like, okay, I'm just going to go home, or I'm just going to, sit on my phone, or other difficult emotions like frustration or sadness or anything really. When I listen to your stories and when I, work with other people during OT, I guess what really strikes me is like the lessons that people that are just as impacted can teach other people that have not had life experiences like that. Yeah.
I think that that understanding, once you get the understanding that life, to me, is a series of problems. A series of problems. If you're living and you think that you won't have difficulties, you're living in a fantasy world. So it's almost like you have to live thinking about life like a chess game sometimes. Understanding that you do have real opponents. You do have people that want to not allow you to thrive. That's just real. You're going to have people that hate on you for the things that you want to do. That's just real. Now, the question is, how do you respond to that? That is the question. Because really, the circumstance of your life really doesn't mean anything. But how you respond to what's going on around you, that'll determine your success and your failure. So if more people paid attention to their response to life's issues or life's difficulties, then maybe they could get past what's going on around them and what's happening directly to them. And that's the way I look at life in general. Like right now, It's a lot of doors still shutting on me. But I always remember, the circumstances that surrounds a man's life are not important. How you respond to it will determine your success and your failure. So I've learned how to respond to everything in life in a way that it brings me success and not failure. And I think that's the key. And that comes from critical thinking. Mm-hmm. Learning critical thinking skills, it allows you to weigh your options. And that's another skill. Being able to understand you do have options. Take a young person in a neighborhood, and the only thing he sees is drugs, guns, violence. He doesn't think he has any options because that's all he sees there. That's all he's around. So his only options are those: drugs, guns, and violence. That's it. Options outside of that, he can't see it. So our goal is to be able to take different options into their neighborhoods and show them, look, you got different options, man. You don't have to choose what you see here. There's a whole nother world over here that you can actually be successful at if you just try it. And that's my goal. My goal is to be able to show these young people that they don't have to accept what they grew up in.
The way that you approach it, too, I think is important because when I talk to people, it's like you can tell them, like, hey, you have options. And they're like, yeah, I know. Knowing that on a surface level and, like, actually, like, the feeling of, oh, yeah, I do have options. Accessing those options, whole different thing. But, like, you've been there, right?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
And the fact that you're doing this, like, the image of you helping these people and saying, like, look, you do have options.
And a lot of times what has to happen is that they have to be taken out of the environment sometime. The clinical definition of environment is defined as the external conditions that affect the growth and development of living organisms. The external conditions that affect the growth and development of living organisms. That's the clinical definition of environment. So when you look at environment, most of us become who we are because of that environment, because of the external conditions. It affects your growth and your development. So the goal is to be able to take a person out of that environment, physically take them out of that environment, put them in an environment that's conducive to building human potential. And then you can see them grow properly. Like, I don't know if this is the spot to be, for instance, if you take, behavioral scientists have said this, if you take an African bee and put the African bee inside an American beehive in a desperate attempt to survive, the African bee is going to adapt to the American beehive. So it's like people adapt to their environment. So we have to be able to take them out of those environments. If we're not able to take their minds out of the environment or the physical body out of the environment, they're going to always be there. So our goal is to be able to give them different options from what they see and then make it attracting to them to where they want to leave where they're already at and accept a new environment. They can actually help them become better. And that's what has to happen. It can be just as simple as this. Young person used to, on Friday nights, used to being in the hood, hanging out with his friends. You say, hey, man, I tell you what, man, listen, man, I'm going to give you $50, man. I want you to roll with me tonight, man. We're going to go to a football game. We're going to go to a basketball game. We're going to go see the Pistons. We're going to go see this or see that. You pay him $50 to roll with you, and you're taking him out of that environment at the same time. So now once he gets used to being in these different environments, his mind switches. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to tell you, Greg Harden did this to me. He used to come get me. If y'all don't know Greg Harden is like the supreme coach for University of Michigan. He coached everybody at University of Michigan. He would come grab me and take me to University of Michigan and have me meet all the football, what you call them? The football team, football players. Yeah. So I met the quarterbacks. I met the tailback. I met them all. So in my mind, I'm like, whoa. And I know what he was doing. He was saying, hold up, man, I'm going to show you a different environment. You know, he took me out to eat at different places. He showed me different places to go eat. You know, so he took me out of the environment I was used to, put me in another environment, showing me that I can survive in those environments. And that's what we got to do. If we want to help young people, we have to take them out of their present environments, give them an environment that they can actually thrive in, and give them the skills they need to thrive in that environment. That's the key.
I want to give Scott a chance here. Scott, is there anything you want to add?
But it kind of brings a lot of what Leroy is describing reminds me of a quote. And I know you had something on the notes here about maybe a Viktor Frankl quote.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I've got a different quote I wanted to share with Leroy and with you and the listeners as well. It's about attitude. And you guys may have heard this before. It's kind of an old school thing, but it's this Charles Swindoll, who I think is an old school preacher, but he had this quote on an attitude, which I really found helpful. And this may be something to pass on to the kids you're working with too, Leroy, because I've used it with my own children. In fact, I've had it up on the refrigerator for years in my home. It says, the longer I live, the more I realize the impact of attitude on life. Attitude to me is more important than facts. It's more important than the past, than education, than money, than circumstances, than failures, than successes, than what other people think, say, or do. It is more important than appearance, giftedness, or skill. It will make or break a company, a church, a home. The remarkable thing is that we have a choice every day regarding the attitude we embrace for that day. We cannot change our past. We cannot change the fact that people will act in a certain way. We cannot change the inevitable. The only thing we can do is play the one string we have, and that is our attitude. I am convinced that life is 10% what happens to me and 90% of how I react to it. And so it is with you. We are in charge of our attitudes. So to me, that just speaks volumes to, and imparting that to young people, I think, is an important thing, because a lot of times they'll, especially if they're like on TikTok and Instagram and all these other social media things, they get in with all these haters and people that just talk down shit to them all the time and bring them down in terms of their attitude and their spirit. And we've got to play that one string we have, and that's our attitude. So you can change that. You can control that. You can be the impact and the force on your own attitude and other people's too. So anyway, I just wanted to toss that out there. I thought that was kind of a,
you know, what I've learned with myself and with children, it's like, even with the word attitude, you know, a lot of times most kids don't even understand what that word means.
Mm-hmm.
You know? So sometimes we have to define to them what certain words actually mean, because they don't know. You know, we take for granted that they do know what attitude actually means.
Mm-hmm.
So when your attitude is the way you feel about something, you know, or the way you see a thing, you know, or the way you respond to a thing. They wouldn't know how to identify what attitude really is. But I love that, and I'm going to use that as well. But I think that just as a talking point, to anybody listening, get in the habit of defining words to children so they can understand what those words actually mean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they may have heard the word, but it may not be explained to them, or examples of that. I think examples are a huge thing with kids, you know, is to. And
it took me years to understand what attitude meant. Like for years, I couldn't give you a clinical definition of what attitude was. I heard the saying about the attitude determines your altitude and all that. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, what is that? What does all that mean? Attitude determines your altitude and all. What does that mean? It sounds good, but what does it mean? But what it is that we need teachers and educators that are able to really get into the mind of these young people and stop talking at them, you know, but actually talk with them. You understand what I mean? And that's what we need to do. We need to talk with them instead of talking about them.
You were talking about Adam a while back, Adam Grant, who's the executive director over at A Brighter Way.
Yes.
When I was doing my time in Carson City, Adam was there at the same time. That's where I got to know Adam, and I got to know Q because he was there also. And so it was a key thing for me. And I think the same thing is analogous to kids in neighborhoods too, because I was this lily white dude in a prison setting, way out of my element. But I found people that were like-minded, that were enlightened people like Adam, like Q, some of the other brothers that we had inside with us. And those are the people you would seek out, and you would hang out with those people. I was going to go out and walk on the yard. Well, I'm going to go out and walk with Adam or Q. Or oftentimes I'd be out walking the yard and they'd be over playing checkers or chess. And then I'd come and hang out with them because they always had a positive spin on shit. It was always, it wasn't just talking people down. It wasn't just how can we get back at the system and blah, blah, blah. No, it's how can we better ourselves? How can we help these other people that are in here with us? So that's why we got into teaching classes. So while I was there in that facility, we taught, I think, 40 different inmate-led classes. We had classes that we taught. And it wasn't people coming from the outside coming in, it was us. And to me, that was a very important, a huge thing that helped me survive. And those people, those particular men like Adam and Q, helped me do my time and helped me learn how to jail because they had the experience. They had been in for quite a while. But the main thing was that they had a positive attitude, that they weren't just defeated, they weren't just under the gun, they weren't just victims of society and the culture and the criminal justice system. They were men in a situation, and they were going to survive, and they were going to thrive in that situation. And it was their attitude that certainly helped me get through my time in good condition and in a good headspace, And so me, that was a huge important thing, and a lot of that was just their attitude and getting around to the right space and the right place.
What would you guys say to? Because we're talking about attitude, right? So, what would you say to somebody that they kind of understand, like, yeah, I need to change my attitude about this? They're kind of like stuck in a rut, in a sense.
Mm-hmm. I mean, what would we say to those people?
Yeah. Q and Adam, like they had a good attitude. It was almost contagious in a way.
Absolutely.
So, like, for someone that's like stuck in a rut, I guess what advice would you have for that person?
I'd try to steer them toward people that had a good attitude or had a good aspect or view of how to survive and how to be successful and how to get along with your fellow humans, because that's like Leroy was talking about skills. That's a skill in itself, is how to relate and interact and to communicate with folks who you recognize as being, a good humanoid. And sometimes you get in those settings where those people are few and far between. But the people that do have a good head and that are good human beings, they stand above the crowd, and you recognize them instantly because they aren't the ones that are kind of over in the corner, kind of mumbling and kind of looking like they're all, jazzed up and trying to get over on other people. It's like, no, they're just human people and they're trying to help other folks, and it's, and that is contagious. And that is, and I would try to steer anybody that I thought was down in that kind of grumbly situation, is kind of lift them up maybe and bring them along and say, hey, let's go talk to Leroy, or let's go talk to, whomever that is a good positive influence, and take them along with you. Try to show them a better way to approach their situation and approach their issues and approach their problems. So sometimes you have to kind of lead them to that. And I think that's what Leroy's setting up, like with this thing tomorrow with having the kids at the Dispute Resolution Center. He's going to show them a better way of dealing with issues that come up in their world and show them an appropriate, responsible, respectful way to deal with stuff rather than just going cuckoo and, throwing things against the wall or trashing somebody or trying to get over on somebody. But let's see how we can make this a better situation.
It's almost like changing your lenses.
Ooh.
Okay.
Changing your lenses, man.
Mm-hmm.
You see these glasses? These are lenses. Your eyes got lenses as well. A lot of times we see things based upon trauma. We see things based upon how we grew up. We see things based upon our present environment. And those things have an effect on our lenses. So my goal is to give you another set of lenses. Is to show you how to see things differently. Where you see a problem, I'll show you that's an opportunity. And I think that's what makes the difference. Because where you see something that's difficult, I'll show you where it's ease. And when you show me something that's easy for you, that's hurting you, I'm going to show you where there's a difficulty in that that's going to harm you. So in my mind, that's what I want to do. I want to give young people a different lens, a different way of seeing things in the way they've always seen them their whole lives.
I think it's interesting too, the second thing you said, like where you see there's ease, like it's something that could harm you. Because like sometimes the easy thing is not really the best thing for you.
That's
you
right.
know? Yeah.
That's right. That's right. And most of us can't see that. We don't really understand that. But when you show it to them, like, hold up, wait a minute, man. You know, it may be easy for you, but there's harm in this. And then something may be difficult for you, and it may be something that's good in it for you. You just got to be able to see it. You know, and that's what I think that most people, not just young people, but most people don't have the right lenses on. You know, they don't have the right lenses. They allow society to color their lenses, so to speak. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The pressures of society. You know, we did when the president was voted in, my boss, Belinda Doolin, the contractor, Belinda Doolin, she organized a circle for women and men to basically vent or to express their feelings about the presidency, the election. And what was so powerful about this circle of men and women was that there were men and women there that had different ideas about society, had different ideas about the presidency, had different ideas about who they voted for in the presidency. But we were all in this space to acknowledge and to be able to accept everybody's ideas. People had to learn how to respect the opinions of others. You know, there was one person that was expressing, he said that he didn't necessarily vote for Trump, but he's glad that Trump won. So he went to speaking on some of the things he felt that Trump represented. And mostly everybody gave him this look like, what the hell? So they looked at him like that. So I spoke next and I explained to everybody, listen, man, you know, this is the fundamental right that we have as human beings is to have our own expressions, is to think what we want to think, you know, to have our own opinions about things. And I said, we can't take that from each other. No matter how much we hate it, no matter how much we like, we cannot take from each other what God has given us, which is our ability to have our own opinions, man. So it's funny because when I said that, everybody changed up. It was looking kind of funny about what he was saying. Everybody was like, whoa, wait a minute. He's right. You know. So in life, it's about your response to things, man. Your response is the major thing to everything in life, man, because you can respond to something the wrong way and it can make you end up in prison for the rest of your life. You can respond to something the right way and it can make you have a 500 company, what they call it, 500 Fortune company.
Fortune 500, yeah.
Fortune 500 company. You know what I mean? It depends on your response. So when I look at every human, what I'm looking at is that All of us have the same brain potential. But yet we've been taught and trained to respond to things totally different. This is what places us in different situations, different circumstances, because we respond to things different.
Scott, did you have anything to add?
On that particular point of the conversation, no, I do not. But I do see on kind of our show notes about the Viktor Frankl quote, and I was curious how that was going to come into play. And it also asks if Leroy has a quote that he likes the most. Do you have any kind of quotes from anybody you like?
Yeah, what kind of quotes you got?
James Allen. He has a book called As a Man Thinketh. And he has a quote that says, "The mind is the master power that molds and makes. And man is mind. And forevermore he takes the tool of thought. He shapes what he wills. He brings forth 1,000 joys and 1,000 ills. He thinks in secret and it comes to pass. Environment is but his looking glass. Man is made or unmade by himself. And in the armory of his thoughts does he forge the weapons by which he builds or destroys himself." That's James Allen.
You guys got these long quotes memorized. I gotta find a long quote to memorize. Just rambling them off. Like we didn't even like.
I like that armory of the mind. I like that.
Yes. In the armory of his thoughts, does he forge the weapons by which he builds or destroys himself.
That's good. Profound. My brother Leroy coming at it again.
Hey man, come on, man. Come on, man. Yes, sir. I didn't make that up. I got that from James Allen. I just remembered it.
That's a good thing. That's a very good thing.
I know you had brought up Trump for a second here.
Yes.
There's a lot going on right now, political world. Scott and then Leroy, we run in like the nonprofit circles. Like there's a lot of government funding that comes our way. Because of all these changes, there's like eyes on the justice system. There's eyes on everything, right? What would you think would be most beneficial for like us to see for kind of the nonprofit sector? What do we need?
Then what usually happens, or often happens, because I was in the nonprofit world back, now it's been 40 years ago, pretty much. Back when Reagan came into power back in 1980, I think it was. So I was working in nonprofits out in California at that time, working with farm workers and low-income Black and Hispanic folks and Asians in the San Joaquin Valley. And so what happens is a lot of the nonprofits who had been surviving on government grants and subsidies and other kind of programs like that, once a lot of that funding for the nonprofits that was coming from the federal government or state governments, which is often kind of a flow through from the federal government, once those monies dried up or were frozen or just done away with, then the competition for more of the mom and pop stuff kind of comes into play, where it's more local family foundations or churches or individual donations and bequests and that kind of thing. So the competition just gets really fierce for the few dollars that are out there that are not government dollars. And so that kind of pits groups like, and this may come to pass in the next few weeks or months, where groups like that Leroy's working with down in the Ypsilanti, Ann Arbor area, groups I'm working with up here in northern Michigan, will start competing more against each other and kind of come into loggerheads with each other because they're going for the same little slice of the pie that before these changes in administration, more conservative, i.e. Republican kind of points of view come into play. It just becomes more restrictive and it becomes more combative almost for the
Yeah.
for the funding dollars that are existing out there.
Which I think is like a real change of pace too, because when I think of other nonprofits like in our area, it's more that we work together. Usually everybody does better in a sense, right? Because like if you have people competing for everything, I mean, like who is the loser, right? The people, whoever benefits from these nonprofit services.
Especially if there's 3 organizations that are working with marginalized populations. If they're all competing for the same bucks, well, one group gets that funding, and the other 2 don't. So that hurts their clientele and their constituents.
Yeah.
So the people we're trying to help end up being the losers in some cases because there's too much competition for the little bit of the pie that's still existing out there.
Right.
I think that a thought just came to my mind was if you had like most of the people in Washington County that I know, most of us are doing like the same type of work.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why there's not a push for everybody that's doing the same work to come together and ask for a big grant to cover all the organizations at one time.
Washington County, like on the local level, is going through changes too because we just got this new sheriff. As a part of ARPA, like the American Rescue Fund, after COVID, that was kind of what that was. And it was really nice. If you were a nonprofit, you still had to kind of bid for these things, but it was like this blanket thing that everybody could not only get a piece of, but could coordinate services. And that was a big thing. So I don't know. We'll see what's going on in Washington County because we got the new sheriff who seems to be really about like justice reform and like the reentry initiatives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that might be something to look into as far as taking like later, right away, supreme felons, getting together and asking for a grant to cover all 3 at one time. And it doesn't have to be a government grant. We can go through a foundation. A foundation is giving out money towards some of the things that we want to do, like with the DM19, with my company. It's not a nonprofit, it's for profit. But I would like to be able to get monies to be able to, like what I do is, when guys come out of prison, I take them and give them clothes. I do that myself. So I buy them suits, I buy them shoes and things of that nature. I want to be able to be big enough where I can do it on a larger scale. Where I can buy them more than just suits and shoes. I can buy them clothes. I can send them to, like right now, by me being a part of GSHA, I can present them with jobs now. I can present them with training. So when they come home, I got the training apparatus for them. I can get jobs for them. Housing is something different. Mm-hmm. Housing is like the hardest thing to get. And we need funding for housing. Mm-hmm. Even if we can get three nonprofits together, petition a foundation to give us funding to buy 3 houses. 3 houses with 7 to 10 different rooms. So when people need those rooms, they can get those rooms for 90 days and they got to figure it out. Or they can get those rooms, we get them a job, and they can pay to stay in those rooms, whatever it is. But housing is something we need to work on in Washington County.
For anyone that's listening that's not familiar with Washington County, it is, I think, in the top 7 like most financially segregated metropolitan areas in the country. So, like, you got Ann Arbor close by, which is where historically a lot of the wealthier people have lived. Yeah. And then outside of Ann Arbor, housing is a huge issue.
And the strange thing about that is like in Ann Arbor, they passed a law where they can't research your background when you're doing housing. They're not able to do that. But they make the prices so high that we can't meet the prices. Mm-hmm. And if Ypsilanti, the prices are low, When Ypsilanti do these background checks, I'd have been denied like 3 times in Ypsi for housing because of my background check. And I was born in Ypsi, went to school in Ypsi, graduated Ypsi High, all that. But yet I can't get housing in Ypsilanti. I had to go to Ann Arbor to pay these astronomical prices for rent to get housing in Ann Arbor.
Yeah, and then like, how do you ever get ahead? Because like people are already scrambling to make ends meet.
That is true.
Yeah,
that is true.
All right, I think I'm out of things to talk about. Do you guys have anything you want to add before we wrap up?
I just want to say, man, to those watching this podcast that never deny a person your presence because of where they come from. I think that the greatest policy sometimes is just to give a person a chance and then judge them based upon what they do with that chance. There's been a lot of situations where I was not given a chance by certain people. And now they're asking themselves, man, why we didn't give him a chance, man? Look at him now. So my point is to everybody, man, judge a person based on what they're doing now. And if they got skills, show them how to magnify their skills, man. And if they got the potential to develop skills, help them to develop skills and help them get better. Like my book, when I write my book, my first actual published book I'm gonna do is gonna be called How Did I Do It? And I want the front cover to be myself standing in the middle of a community of people around me. Mm-hmm. Because that's how I done it. That's how I done it. I had a community of people around me that gave me a chance. The ones that did give me a chance, they were like, okay, Leroy, you know what? We're going to do this. We're going to see how this works out. Funny story before we go. Mm-hmm. Greg Harden, greatest mentor ever. He's my mentor. So he had been mentoring me since I've been home for like a year and a half now. So there came a time about 6 to 8 months in, he calls me. He says, how you doing, son? I said, I'm good, huh? How about yourself? He said, I'm fine. He said, I just wanted to tell you something. I said, what's up? He said, you can use my name now and tell everybody I'm your mentor now. And I started laughing. Right? And he says, yeah, because in the beginning, me and Auntie ain't know where you was going with this, man. We ain't understand. We ain't understand. But now we see. You can use my name now.
You proved yourself.
I love it because he wanted to teach me some things and see how I took to it and see how I grew in the things he was teaching me. But he also paid attention to his reputation. He has a mean reputation, man, the best reputation ever in being a life coach. So in his mind, he was like, I don't want this young dude to mess up my reputation by saying I'm his mentor and he do some crazy stuff. You know what I mean? So I loved it when he said that. And I let everybody know today that Greg Harden was my mentor. You know what I mean? Is my mentor. So
he's the one that gave you that chance.
Yeah, he's the one that gave me the big chance. He's the one that took me around to all the coaches in Michigan, the Michigan coaches. Took me to meet all the coaches, all the teams, everything, man. So he showed me a different life than I was used to when I come home. Mm-hmm. He introduced me to a whole different life. I thank him for that, him and his wife for that.
That's awesome, yeah.
And I thank you guys for allowing me to do this podcast, and I appreciate it, man. Every time I see you, Scotty, I want to ask you about Captain Kirk. I don't know why, but I do.
Captain Kirk.
I'll telepathically let you know about Kurt.
Yeah. I appreciate you too, Scott. What I call you, Scott?
Alex,
man, that's crazy, man. Thank you, man. I appreciate it, man. And
yeah, we appreciate you too, man. Thank you for coming on. Thank you, Scott, of course, as always.
Pleasure.
Yeah, if that's anything
That's it.
else, we'll get together next time.
Yeah.
All right.
Sounds
All right,
good.
man, my podcast is coming out soon. My new podcast is coming out soon. I'm gonna let y'all know the name and everything. Y'all need to be there and be square.
Right on.
I'm out. Leroy Kane here signing out.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
Tough times we've been through.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
He's even doing the walk off.
Hi,
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 this is Ariana.
this is Alex,
this is Elise.
Thank you for listening to Voices of the Underheard by Later,
where we aim to reduce stigma
By offering opportunities
to develop a compassionate understanding of
of others' lived experiences.
we hope
we hope
We hope you enjoyed this episode
and look forward to having you back.